Now, tensions between Australia and China have further escalated after Canberra demanded China come clean over the origins of the coronavirus. Calling for justice for its 1,000 plus citizens who had succumbed to the virus, Defence Minister Peter Dutton had demanded China come clean over disputed reports that the SARS-CoV-2 virus leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, these are the most direct allegations that have been addressed to China's leadership by the Australian government since the pandemic began. For context, besides the US and other allies, Australia was one of the first countries that to this day continues to demand for an independent international probe into what led to the fatal outbreak that first emerged in Wuhan in late 2019 and spread globally. Moreover, the first person to publish the genome of the virus happens to be Professor Eddie Holmes of the Sydney University. Now, where the virus first emerged remains a hotly contested diplomatic issue. It has caused many rifts within global diplomacy, fueling China's deteriorating relations with the US and many of its allies. Going back to December of 2020, when the WHO had announced that it would send a team of international scientists to travel to Wuhan to investigate the origins of COVID-19, in the months leading up to this, Beijing had been reluctant to let the UN's health agency conduct an independent inquiry. But Australia's pursuit for a probe remained unceasing. And starting in April of 2020, as a member of the WHO's board, Australia's demand for a robust and independent investigation was heard, and subsequently Prime Minister Scott Morrison and members of his cabinet went on record multiple times to demand an independent inquiry of how the virus originated. China, to no surprise, took Australia's repeated calls for a probe as an affront. It deemed the push for a probe motivated by racial prejudice, refused to hand over raw data for the first known cases. It launched several scathing retaliatory sanctions on Australia's economy. It has also tried to pitch alternative suggestions on how the SARS-CoV-2 virus emerged, going as far as blaming the US military labs at Fort Detrick in Maryland and hypothesizing that the virus may have traveled to Wuhan on food packaging. China's state media's timely editorials seemingly at first tried to match the tone of the accusations as they began to quickly pile up. One of the first Global Times pieces on the subject read, and I quote, "Since the outbreak began, China has always acted in an open, transparent and responsible manner and taken a series of resolute, timely and forceful measures," unquote. Now, editorials would later go on to speak about a US-led blame game. Australia, too, would find mention in this diatribe. And later, the Global Times editor, Hu Shijing, on Weibo had to say this: "Australia is always there making trouble. It's a bit like chewing gum stuck on the sole of China's shoes. Sometimes you have to find a stone to rub it off." Soon, these hit pieces would go on to sharpen their arguments and begin to resemble rants, terming the calls for an independent probe an all-out crusade against China and Chinese culture, led by Australia.